in prison, I had a fight with two of my homies in prison. We fight for like 4 hours.
Jesus.
Back to back. I'm just fighting one after another one. Like, we just fighting. And I go to solitary confinement. And at this time, all these parish prisons is considered like one of the worst parish prisons in the United States of America, right? And I go to the cell and I meet this white guy. That was the turning point of my life. I get in the cell with him and I'm frustrated, like I'm kind of bust up. And he sees me and I guess he's in awe of the idea of so many Black people are in this position. He says something to me, he says, man, y'all playing the wrong game. And so in my mind, like I'm frustrated, I'm like, man, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, bro, like don't make me whoop your ass in here right now. Like, he's like, no. He's like, listen, bro, I don't mean no harm, no disrespect, but y'all, like, why? So I guess he's like perplexed by this whole dynamic of all of these Black men in here. And I'm like, man, what are you talking about, man? Like, this ain't no game, like this real. And so he says something, he said, that's the problem. Like, y'all don't even know it's a game.
Fuck.
And so when he told me that, I'm like it's something about when you mad and you in the moment, but like something, when it makes sense, it hits you like a ton of bricks. So I'm like, what? He was like, man, listen, man, there's a game that's being played and you're playing a game that you can't win. For a minute, I just started thinking about the people who I knew that was in the streets. Everybody lost, everybody suffered the same fate. There was nobody in the street that I knew at 16 that won. Everybody I knew had either been to prison, been shot, got killed, their father, like everybody suffered the same fate. So my rebuttal to him is this: well, if it's such of a game and you know the rules, why are you in here with me?
It's a good question.
Right? He says, I'm in here, $2.8 million embezzlement. I paid $800,000 restitution. I kept $2 million. Have you ever seen $2 million? I'm like, man, get the fuck out of here. You fucking lying. So one thing about prison and in jail, you can show your paperwork. Like, you can lie all you want, but your paperwork tells me. So I said, let me see your paperwork then. So in New Orleans, I had a red band. So a red band means attempt murder, armed robbery, kidnapping, carjacking, violent offense. He has on a red and white band at the time. The red and white band means you're in federal custody. And it's crazy because in prison or in jail, like, if you get a federal band, that's like a hierarchy. It's like, you know something that we don't know, you next level, right? So he showed me his paperwork and it's right there in black and white. And immediately he got my attention. Because the red and white band makes me respect you at a different level at 16, but then when I see it in your paperwork, I had never seen $2.8 million written down nowhere. Right, so that changes my idea, like, damn. So tell me, how do I do what you do? So how do I do that? And he was like, nah, it's not even about that. So he tells me the first three things was, he said, listen, man, wealthy people do three things, man. They stop trading time for money. They make their money work for them. And they give as much value to people as they can.
I want to stop you there for a second. I know where you're going with this, and we're gonna go there. But one thing I love about your fucking story, dude, you don't say, one thing that white people do is, one thing that wealthy people, getting people to see that, to me, that's the game, is recognizing that this isn't, it doesn't break along racial lines the way people think it does. And my time working in the inner city showed me this is not about that. But this is about class, for sure, and getting people to understand that they can move between classes. That's the fucking game. Sorry, I just had to say that's so important to me.
Shift. There is a shift, but there's the exposure part. So like just coming up in the streets, you only see the game from the lowest level. And you look at everybody else in part admiration and part like jealousy. Cause you see it and you're like, damn, I'll never get there. Right? And so the only way that I think I can get that is through sports or hustling. That's it. That's the only, or rapping. Those are the only three options that you have. And so you make a decision on which way you want to go, right? And so you look at it from like, damn. And so me, I'm at the time like, man, I can't rap. Damn sure I can't play sports. So hustling is what I got. You limit yourself and nobody comes along and teaches you anything different.
So give them those 3 things again that wealthy people do.
So he said wealthy people stop trading time for money. They start making their money work for them, and they give value to as much value to people as they can. The caveat, I mean, we got a little deeper into that. He said, the reason why you give people so much value is because if you give them so much value, they'll never leave you and they'll always be there for you. And you will never need for anything as long as you give value to people. And so I learned that as I got older. That part really didn't make sense to me at the time, but the money working for you part, and I was like, how do you make your money work for you? Again, all I know is how to go get money. That's all I know. So later on in that, he says wealthy people do 3 things. So we in a cell for about 45 days. So all of his conversations, now that you said, it never was black or white. Every conversation with him about money and transition was always wealthy people do. It wasn't white people do, it wasn't black people, it was always wealthy people do this.
Right.
Wealthy people do this. And I was like, damn, and now that you said that, this now makes sense to me again. So he says, wealthy people, first they get into stocks, then they start a business, and then they get real estate. So when people ask me, how did I get into stocks? It's because I followed that rule. I was like, first, if you would have said real estate, business, I would have been the real estate trap. But he said stocks first, and I was like, damn. And so I just, my rest of my time in prison, I wanted to be that. I wanted to be a part of that wealthy conversation. So in prison, it's easy to get, I took my time, I researched the Warren Buffetts and the Peter Lynch's, and I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning, that shit was like Chinese to me. Right? This is a foreign language. And so what happened to me was it started reminding me of being in the streets. Everything about it. And I heard this term one time that said, the real gangsters are on Wall Street. The real gangsters are in the government. And I was like, damn. And so once I started getting into the stock market.
I want to fuck with that idea for a second. I'm thinking through this in real time, so forgive me if I'm super clumsy.
Good.
But this is one of the things about you that I think is so interesting. When I hear, so I'm good at making money. I'm not good at investing money. So when I hear you talk about stocks, you make it sound fucking edgy and cool and makes me want to like learn about it and get into it. And there is this idea of making something cool that I think people try to wash it away. But when you think about the phrase, the real gangsters are in Wall Street, hopefully it helps people break through some idea of like, oh, well, they were born into that and that's why they have it. That isn't true. They were taught something, which they happen to be taught because they were born into it. But once you latch onto they were born into it, you think, then it's not for me. Once you realize, no, it doesn't matter how or why they got taught. They got taught. And that's what allows them to move like a gangster. To give that word there is definitely some negativity and there are people in the financial system that really are like fucking gangsters and they're fucking sinister. But if people can let go of that idea, not everybody with money is sinister and getting money doesn't make you sinister. And that's why one thing that I think is important, and I know we talked about before we started rolling, you're a little bit conflicted. How much do I show my growing wealth? And I think that I normally hate when people flex, and I won't say that I never flex, but I never go out of my way to flex. But it's important for people to see that you, by living the way that you live, you don't just get to talk cool, you actually live in a different way, which is really fucking interesting. Anyway, so the real gangsters are on Wall Street.
Yes.
I love that.
And what happens is, and just let me say this right quick, the reason why people think wealthy people or people with money are sinister is because that's what you kind of taught in the hood. Like you kind of taught like the people who really have money, like they did some wicked shit to get it. They did some backstabbing, cutthroat shit to get it, and you'll never get that, right? And so that same mentality now happens on a lower level, right? The hustling, the dope dealing. So now you think like, yo, I gotta just do sinister shit to get money. And then the people who are successful in the drug game, they're looking at the people at the top like, damn, I wanna be that. But the people at the bottom will never get a taste of that. And so now we just kind of living off ambition. And so now the people who are in the middle who working, they're like, oh, them people with money, they all crooks. Because being at the bottom teaches you to envy people at the top.
Right.
It just happens. It's something that brews down there, right? It's kind of like when you cook. I don't know if you had gumbo before, right? But it's kind of when you cook food, right? The base goes to the bottom. And so most people live in that bottom, never knowing how they'll get up there, right?
I remember, so when I was working in the inner cities, I remember having this moment where I was like, wait a second, this is not an intelligence problem. Intelligence is evenly distributed. Like I remember saying to my wife, the next fucking Elon Musk is gonna be found somewhere in Compton. The problem is he doesn't believe in himself. Yep. And so he's not gonna do anything. And so I became obsessed with this idea that generational poverty is not about money, it's about mindset. Now, it will manifest as money, but it is that, so I remember I had one kid come to me and I was the first person that told him, you can be successful. Like, what the fuck? Why do you not think you can be successful? It didn't even make sense to me. And he was like, well, my mom always told me that the world didn't want to see people that look like me succeed. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I'm like, even if your mom had good intentions, that is the worst fucking advice ever, because if you think you can't be successful, that will govern the way that you move, right? So Kobe Bryant, people that have listened to me for a while have heard this quote 1,000 times, but boos don't block dunks. The world can hate you all they want, but if you're good enough, think about this. The best basketball players in the world were paid millions of dollars to stop Kobe Bryant from scoring, and the motherfucker scored 81 points in a single game. 81 points. When you've got 5 people paid millions of dollars actively trying to stop you, and they can't because you've gotten that good. That to me is the game of money. People can not want you to succeed all they want, but if you out-invest them, they can't stop you. They can't stop you. They can't stop you.
That's heavy.
And so getting people to break through that. So that was the first time I realized, whoa, wait a second. We've got people thinking in a way that governs their behavior such that, and now I'm going to quote you, which I had never heard this before, but this scares the shit out of me. If you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. Fuck! So that's heinous in ways I can't even explain. And I'll say that it really, again, doesn't break along racial lines. It breaks along economic lines. So if people are not encouraging you to read, you're not going to read. It's fucking hard in the beginning. It feels like you're learning Chinese. How did you break through that?
So there's a few things where we can get into that. So there's this economic thread that weaves itself through the hood. And one of the things we do gotta understand is that there has been intentionality when it comes to preventing Black culture from thriving economically. So we look at like Black Wall Street, we look at Durham, North Carolina, we look at Rosewood. Every time an affluent Black neighborhood gets in that level where like, yo, we about to do it, and they set the tone for the rest of them, that get bombed, it get pillaged, that happens. And so now that becomes discouraging, right? It's like, yo, like every time we try, yo, like, fuck, man, right? And so now what happens with that is, that mindset gets impregnated in the next generation for fear of survival, right? Like, yo, don't try to become this as a collective because they're gonna bomb this, and I don't wanna see you dead, so we'll low-level think. Now, that is intentional. What happens is now, no one now believes that it's possible. Once you keep passing that down, you start accepting the lower level. And then there's a few of us or a few people who say, nah, I'm an outlier, yo. Like, I'm about to go for it. And then whatever happens, I'm with that shit. You feel me? So for me, again, one of the greatest things that happened to me was my mother telling me like, the world is raw and you gotta get this shit how you live. But I also saw my grandmother be a legal entrepreneur. So I saw it from both worlds. The greatest thing that ever happened to me was going to prison. Because I was able to sit down and mature in that environment. Whereas had I been in the world, I'm not saying I wouldn't still be this, but the path would have been completely different.
Right. Did you do all 10 years?
I did 8 years and 9 months.
God damn.
85% of it. And so had I still been on the street, I would have now been struggling with survival. One of the things that happens often in the culture of Black people is survival mode. You never get a chance to play offense. You're always on defense. One, because of mindset, because you don't see it. Again, the dope dealer and the rapper, everybody who's working is struggling. And so you never want to be that. You never want to be that. You're like, damn, like, why is everybody struggling? I need to do something different. So while I'm in prison, I pick up a habit of reading. That was the game changer for me. On the streets, I never had the opportunity to just sit down and read because I'm always trying to survive. in prison, there was no longer a survivor mode there. When we look at it when we break everything down,
that's fucking fascinating.
We break everything down and we look at it from a skeleton. I have a roof over my head. I have a bed. It's not the most comfortable bed. I have a bed. I get 3 meals a day. Whether I like it or not, I have the essentials.
Right.
I started hustling in prison. So I was working in the laundry. And so your clothes don't really get clean. So I found a hustle like, yo, I'll wash your clothes when we do it, but it's $5 or $25 a month. So that gave me a whole another set of money. And then I started being like a numbers dude. How Vegas have the numbers, the betting. I became a numbers guy. So I used to use
self-taught.
That's it, self-taught. I used to get the USA Today. I used to look at this guy, Danny Sheridan. He used to put out the line. And then I would take his numbers and put those numbers on my ticket. And my ticket was called Braveheart. So now I did college football, NFL football, and laundry. I had a whole thing going. Now check this out. There's 5 units in prison. I had people in each unit selling tickets for me, as in distributors. So the streets was the same in there, right? And so in each unit, there's 6, 8 domes. So one person was responsible, and he had runners, and everybody worked for me. And so that's how I survived. But I had time now to just sit down and read. And I would read one. My first book ever reading was Sister Soldier, Coldest Winter Ever. Changed. I was like, damn, this is dope. So I went through the Reading the Hood classics, and then I jumped into like, let me understand.
Is Sister Soldier like the hip hop artist?
Yeah, she had a book, The Coldest Winter Ever.
Shit.
Phenomenal book. I read it, and I was like, damn, like this shit is dope. So I went through a phase where I was reading like the hood books, and then I was like, man, I lived this shit already. No matter how many times you tell a hood story, it's still the same. Right. I've lived this shit for real. I don't keep need to read this. And so I used to get up in the mornings and watch CNBC. So mind you, people in prison, they love to watch The Young and the Restless. And so I would have to get up before them to watch like Squawk Box, Jim Cramer. And I'd just be like, damn, these motherfuckers making all this money and they not risking their life. Something gotta change for me. Like something gotta change. And so I just started listening to them every day, and I started comparing it to the streets. A good business is just like a good hustler. A good business has great product. They have great clientele. A great hustler has a great product. He has consistent clientele. A good business on the stock market has what's called a moat, a competitive edge that keeps his competitors away. A good hustler on the street is gonna have that competitive edge where they be like, nah, yo, I ain't rocking with you. I'm gonna just wait till Trap come back, right? So there's the competitive edge. A good business has a good branding moat, meaning my name is good, right? So a good hustler on the street, yo, Trap got that blue magic. I'm good on you. Like if I can't get Trap, I'm gonna just go Trap. But Trap got that blue magic, that's what I'm rocking with. Branding mode, right? That's it. A great business on the stock market has more assets, more liquidity than debt. A good hustler on the street is, if you don't learn how to fund your business, if you're operating where all you have is re-up money, you're not gonna last long. So those components reminded me the same. On the stock market, in the world, if a company's paying tariffs, that's equivalent to a dude on the street going pay draft to go hustle in somebody's hood. Like you can't hustle over here unless you pay me draft. It's the same as a tariff. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So once I broke the game down to a way that I can understand it, it wasn't about me just being brilliant. It was like, yo, how do I make the game winnable for me?
People build a business.
Yep.
The business needs something though. That thing is capital.
Yep.
It needs money. So the people building the businesses in the beginning, they often don't have the capital, and so they need a way to go out and get the capital. Or it's going to get a little bit complicated fast, but I'm going to go through it and see if people can hang.
Let's go through it.
All right, you're building a business. One of two things is true. You either don't have money, and so you need somebody that can help you get the things moving that you need to then generate the capital. Okay, I'm sure people have heard the phrase, it takes money to make money, which isn't entirely true, but certainly as you scale, that is very true. You have to pay employees and all that. Okay, so it takes money to make money. So you're building a business, you need the capital, you can get somebody to give you money early on, you can make a little bit of money and reinvest it yourself. But what most people do is either they need that money or they've managed to get the company going. This is what happened to me at Quest. So you get the company going, you don't have to take money from other people in the beginning, but all of your money is in the company. So I was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I couldn't access it. I'm driving a beat up car. And so it's like, I'm rich on paper, but in actuality, not so much. okay, so one of those two things is true. I either need money to get this thing going, or all the value that I've been able to build is trapped in equity in the company. So to unleash some of that value, they create shares. You're now a public company, and this is what you're talking about. So, hey, you've got this, JP Morgan realizes, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm not gonna be able to build something. But these entrepreneurs are in a tricky situation. They're maybe brilliant with business, but they have another need.
Yep.
And so as they go public, which is just creating shares out of your company.
Yep.
It's a very technical
Breaking
thing.
it down to pieces.
Exactly. Break it into pieces. Now you're going to sell those pieces to the public. They can then buy a piece of that entrepreneur's endeavor, right? A piece of that company. And so now the entrepreneur or the business, depending on if they're selling their personal shares or if the company's selling treasury shares, either the company has just gained a ton of money or that individual has taken money off the table and now they've actually got real wealth, which always makes me laugh when people think that Jeff Bezos has $190 billion.
Sitting in cash,
his
right?
company is worth that. He doesn't have that unless he sells the shares.
Right.
So anyway, so now it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So as an average person, I can go buy a piece of these storied companies.
That's it.
But what I really want people to understand, you just went and learned that.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you how late I came to this game. You figured this out before I did. I was building businesses already. This is why I'm so fucking in awe. When I think about how far down the road I learned the game of building businesses. You learned the game of buying businesses. Okay, maybe people don't want to do the thing that I did. Some days I wonder. And you went down another road, which is available to everybody.
100%.
Okay, so now the people have their little primer in how all of this game works.
Right.
One, why don't people do it? In fact, let's start there. We'll definitely talk about how to do it well, but why don't people do it?
I think because America has painted this picture that it is dangerous. So think about TV.
I'm gonna lose my money.
I'm going to lose my money. Stock market crashes, right? And then every show that you've seen about Wall Street is about people that are crooked, that take advantage of people's money and then get rich, and so people don't associate with that, right? People feel like, you know what, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't know enough about that, right? When investing in the stock market isn't an IQ game. It's not about being the most brilliant person in the world. Right? It's about understanding basic economics. And basic economics is what we know every day. You understand this, supply and demand. Right? Supply and demand says that if Michael Jordan drops a shoe, then the line is going to be wrapped around the corner. Right? But if you find a way to get that shoe, hold on to that shoe, and then later on, you can now sell that shoe at a top tier price. Right? Supply and demand. Right? If we can understand that, you understand certain parts of basic economics. Right? You understand that.
If Michael Jordan were to release 100 million shoes, won't be worth much.
Won't be worth.
But if he releases
1,000,
exactly, now
price
gonna go crazy, and then over time it becomes worth even more because most people will wear the shoes, lower the value, but for anybody that holds on to them, so now you've got decreasing supply, which creates even if the demand stayed steady, if the supply decreases, now you've got a positive dynamic.
100%. And so that's the most amazing part about investing is everybody won't be able to build $1 billion business, right? But everybody can invest in one. And that's why I love it, right? So the three things in my wealth pyramid is stocks, business, real estate. I believe you should have all three, right? But you can get away with two.
How are you differentiating between stocks and business?
So when I say stocks, it means like me buying shares of a business.
Yep.
Business second is me creating a business, and then real estate third.
So you think everybody should create a business?
No. That's why I say you can get away with 2 out of the 3.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So everybody doesn't have to create a business because it's just not for everybody. But you can see what we do know is as America evolves, so does business. As business evolves, there are some brilliant people that says, for that business, there's a problem. For that problem, I have the solution. That's a business you would like to invest in, right? And so if we can invest in the solutions, I always say that, if we invest in the solutions, we cannot help but win. Investing in a solution, okay? Making Amazon was a solution to so many things. getting us information faster, getting us books faster, it changed the game. It revolutionized how we got packages. It made somebody say, you know what, I could go to the store today, but I'm willing to wait one day to get this package.
The truth is, hitting your career goals is not easy. You have to be willing to go the extra mile to stand out and do hard things better than anybody else. But there are 10 steps I want to take you through that will 100x your efficiency so you can crush your goals and get back more time into your day. You'll not only get control of your time, you'll learn how to use that momentum to take on your next big goal. To help you do this, I've created a list of the 10 most impactful things that any high achiever needs to dominate. And you can download it for free by clicking the link in today's description. All right, my friend, back to today's episode. Can I just say, for the young people in the crowd who grew up with Amazon, there was a time you'd have to wait 4 to 6 weeks to get something in the mail.
Exactly.
That's insane. You can order something in the morning and get it in the afternoon.
And some places you get it the same day. And so when we think about revolutionizing the game, evolving, that's what I love about investing, right? Think about Tesla, and I'm not advocating for anyone to invest in these businesses, but I'm just showing how the world has evolved. And you can build your wealth, for me, 100% if you're bold enough to bet on the future. If you're bold enough to bet on the future and be patient enough to let it take place, you will win, and you will win big. That's without a doubt. So we see the evolution of Tesla, and we see what's going on with this business. Even if you don't agree with everything that Elon does, you say, okay, well, Rolls-Royce just dropped its first EV car for $400,000, right? They're saying they're going to be all electric by 2030. General Motors saying they're going to be all electric by 2032. Ford has dropped electric cars now. What is that telling us right now? The landscape of vehicles is changing, right? So what do I say? Okay, I want to be a part of this evolution. I want to be a part of not only the electric car revolution, but the charging stations, the batteries, right? These are the components, the supply chain that makes this whole sector possible. And so for me, that's betting on the future. And if we can understand, if we can truly grasp that your money is not doing you no justice in the bank. It's not, especially now, right? It's not doing you no justice in the bank.
Why not?
Well, because the more they print money, the more your money loses value, right? The more inflation goes up, the more your money loses value. So $100 spent in 2019, that same $100 now takes $109. Right, so your money is lost. You need that
to buy
much
the same
thing, right? So if you bought this mug for $100 in 2019,
I'm gonna slap you in the mouth if that's what you did. But yeah,
it now costs you $109, right? You need that much more money. So we understand that one lie we've been told is sitting our money in a bank. So that's probably should have added that to the equation earlier, right? Putting our money in a bank, thinking that the bank is the safest place to have our money. Right, that's probably the most dangerous place, because I always say a dollar that's not moving is a dollar that's losing. Right, so sitting our money in a bank is not the place to be. Right, so what would be?
How do you make your money move?
How you make your money move? By making great investments or just investing. So I'll give you an example. For me personally, I literally don't have but like $12,000 sitting in the bank. All of my money is in the market. 90% of it is in the market. So I use what's called the VOO, which is the Vanguard Index Fund for the S&P 500. I use that as my savings account. So every month or every week, I'm putting money in that. Well, Trap, what happens when the market is going down? Well, my money wasn't making no money in the savings account anyway. Right. So I'm putting it in there, right? And then what happens when the market rebounds? Because we won't be here forever. We won't be here forever. What happens when the market rebounds? Well,
talk to people about realized losses versus unrealized losses.
Okay.
Because I think this really messes with people.
That's good. So an unrealized loss is when, let's say I have $100 in something and that goes down to $89, right?
Meaning if I sold it today, right, I wouldn't be able to sell it for what I paid for, but
it's
I
there.
don't have to sell it.
It's okay. So you buy something at $100, it goes down to $80. If you don't sell it, you have an unrealized loss of $20. I mean, you didn't sell it, your equity just decreased. But if you sell it, you realize that gain. You have now made that gain realistic. That loss. You've realized that loss. You've made that loss realistic. So you've now essentially lost that $20, right? That's a realized loss. Now, realized gain is the exact opposite, right? So if you go up to, I buy something for 100, it goes up to 150. Unrealized, I have $50 in unrealized gain. So it's there, but I didn't sell it. It's there. Realizing it is saying I've cashed out. I've cashed out on it. Think about, like you talked about Jeff Bezos, right? His net worth is what, 180 something billion dollars, something like that. Last time I checked, 60% of his money was in Amazon stock. 60% of it. So this is why you wake up one day and you say, damn, Jeff lost $18 billion. Well, that's unrealized because he didn't cash out. So he didn't lose it. It's still there. Once the stock backs up, he recoups all of that. And so that's the dope part about the market. Yes, it fluctuates. Yes, it goes ups and downs, but that's also the most scariest part about the market, because people who come from lower income, working class environments, the worst thing that can come to their mind is losing money that I bust my butt for. That's what makes the market so scary for them. And that confusion keeps them out of the market.
Yeah, so this is where now people have to get into the intricacies of money. So it's probably worth belaboring the point a little bit about the people don't even get to the starting line. So I forget the percentage of households of people that live paycheck to paycheck, but it's ungodly. It's astronomical. It's more than 50%, 72%. That's so ridiculous. So this is for people even making six figures. Like, most people live paycheck to paycheck.
100%.
If you're living paycheck to paycheck, one, you're not going to survive any difficulty financially. So if you get sick and now your hospital bills, the number of people that go broke because they have no savings, and now they get sick, your car breaks down. I remember that when I was broke. And your car breaks down, it's like, well, then I don't have a car. It's not like I can even choose to go get it fixed. So, of course, people in that situation are not thinking, oh, I need to go put money into the stock market. I'm not saving money anyway. So that's number one, to your point about people spend money that they don't have. So whatever, $1.04 out of every dollar that they make. The only way I found where I could do it, where I could save, I had to gamify it. I had to make it fun. I had to get myself obsessed over watching the number go up so that I would get more of a dopamine rush out of looking at I used to use Mint. I don't know if they're still around.
Into it, man. A stock that they can own.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Well said. So I would, because it connected to my bank account, every time I made a deposit into my bank account, my dashboard would automatically update. And I'm like, oh, damn, like I've now got $500, $527. And it was like, cool. Is it going up? Is it going up? Is it going up? And so people need to find that hook, whatever that is, to get excited about beginning to save money. But it's interesting. I like that you use the Vanguard as the savings account. So is your money automatically allocated?
No, so I do it, one, because I found that financial discipline in myself. So this is my routine.
How'd you develop that?
So growing up, you realize that there's a thread that runs through especially poverty-stricken America, right? And it is that we have no financial structure. Right, if everyone is living paycheck to paycheck, right? So let me go back for a second. Reaganomics caused so much havoc to that low income black community, right?
Why?
So let's think about this. In 1982, the year I was born, Ronald Reagan took 1 million people off of welfare. He took another 500,000 people, kids, out of free lunch, right? The economy went through a real recession in 82. But then in 85, without getting into all of it, around 65 tons of cocaine pillaged lower income black America in the form of crack cocaine. 85 tons that came from Nicaragua, which then was a result of Ronald Reagan being told he could not put illegal guns in Iran. So he supported the South American Contra. Go look that up. It's an amazing story, right? that wreaked havoc. So a lot of times in my culture, we look at slavery and we look at that, and that's cool, but this generation can't identify with that, right? It's too far. But what we can identify with is that everyone from 82 to now has been touched by the crack era. Cocaine, crack, abuse, it separated families. And so now think about the mindset that came with money during that era, right? Everything was lack, right? You have people trying to work, you have functioning families now broken up by drug abuse, fathers locked up, mothers now with the term crack babies, now another way to separate black women from kids. So crack pillaged the black community, especially in major cities, LA, Miami, New York, pillaged them. So now the idea of money is separate. I want you to think about the mindset that you have to have as a man, as a friend. I grew up with this brother, I grew up with his mother, and now his mother is buying crack from me, right? For me to sell my friend's mother crack, what type of mindset, monstrous mindset that has to have, and then that becomes the norm, right? And then from that era, we go to Bush, where now the war on drugs is important, but how can we have a war on drugs if we are now pushing the drugs in this community, right? And then we get to now mandatory minimums, and then we get to Clinton, where we get 3 strikes you out. So now, before we can even deal with the money mindset, we got to deal with the pillage and the breakup of the family that happens. And so now when a family is in survival mode, we can't think about money, because now we're trying to, how is this next meal possible, right? Financial trauma. Financial trauma now is anchored to who we are. So for me, when I was in prison, when I got exposed to, damn, I'm playing the wrong game, I had to look at the pieces on the board. Like, am I a knight? Am I a bishop? Am I a rook? I damn sure ain't the king. So that means I'm a pawn. Pawns always get sacrificed. So if I'm always being sacrificed, how the hell can I win this game? Something got to change. And so one of the things I knew that had to change was my relationship with money.
Because that's how you change what piece you are on the board.
That's how you change what piece you are. And then what happens with the pawn on a chessboard is, if the pawn can find a way to get to the other side of the chessboard, he then can become whatever he wants. And for me, it's the two things, the information and learning how to use money, I can become any piece on the chessboard. And so now for me, once I learned about money, once I started healing my own financial trauma, it was easy for me to now start talking to people about it, but also improving my life. Because now money is not the thing that dictates me. It's the vision. It's the, how do I become successful for the next generations? How do I help the people that I know heal their financial trauma? We can't even talk about money. We can't talk about wealth. We can't talk about winning in this world if we don't disattach ourselves from the things that's keeping us from being successful. And that is, for me, financial trauma. That is a harsh pill to swallow. And just a form of that is, just think about it like this.
Why is that a hard pill to swallow?
Well, because if you think about it, most people like to deflect, right? It's not my fault. Think about the years of slavery. Think about this. People like to deflect. They never want to take full accountability for it, right? But healing that financial trauma is saying, yo, check this out. We talked about it earlier. If you have more money under your bed and in your closet than you have in your investment account or your savings account, then that's financial trauma. If you are saying things, if you're doing things like, you know you're barely making it, you know you're living check to check, but for Christmas, you go spend money you don't have to say, well, my kids can have a great Christmas, that's financial trauma, because what you've now taught your kid is it's okay to spend money you don't have to have a good time and then come back later on and have to pay that, or digging yourself in a deeper hole. So somebody has to break that financial trauma. If not, the family, the generations that follow will all follow the same suit. And you need one outlier. You need one person that's disruption. You need one person to do that. And if nobody ever does that, you can look at a whole lineage of a people, of a family, and realize why nobody has never changed it. And so for me, the change was, if I can become financially literate, if I can become financially conscious, if I can increase my financial fortitude, then I can not only change myself and my life, I can lead by example and change my family. And then that can have another effect, the people around me, my friends, so on and so forth. But it was me being able to heal that financial trauma in the beginning, man. That was important.
The only one I hear talking about something that I think is actually really connected, which is values and knowledge to get the outcome that you want. When did you start, like, hearing you talk about the disruption of the family, the more I look, so I think you know my background.
Yeah.
But so my story, I started big brothering for a kid in South Central.
Yep.
And I was just too young to understand what was happening. And so I have no idea why he's acting out, why everything is just a mess. And start getting older, start Quest, 1,000 employees that remind me of the kid and I big brothered for him for 8.5 years. So it was a long time.
Yeah.
From the time he was 8 till he was 16. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And seeing then later, when I was finally old enough to understand what was going on, a bunch of people that were growing up in the inner cities, it is, this is the fiery debate right now. Is it culture? Or is it that the deck is stacked against me? And I felt like a man screaming into the void. You've given such a cool analogy. If people play chess, so you've got the pawns are always sacrificed, but if you get to the other side of the board, you can replace them with something else. That's the human condition. Traversing the board is knowledge. But if you learn, and no one can stop you, this is the age of free information.
Facts.
If you can learn, then you really can become whatever you want. Booze don't block dunce. No one can stop you from doing the thing that you want to do. And so I was just like screaming and screaming and screaming. Like, no. The only thing that separates you and I are ideas. I found a better set of ideas, and those ideas govern my life. It's what I call frame of reference. So if your frame of reference is poverty, and I remember saying this before the internet was like really popping off, and so there was nobody there to freak out and yell. But I was like, the day I realized, poverty isn't about money, it's about mindset. I was just like, whoa. And then you encounter the first person that's like offended by that idea. And I was like, whoa, what do you mean? I literally didn't understand why that was offensive. I'm like, this means that you can set yourself free. You could do whatever the fuck. So getting people to understand, okay, there's taking it back to the family. For whatever reason, the predictive nature of a 2-parent household is crazy. If you have one, the odds of you doing well are really high. And if you don't have one, they begin to decline. Why?
Well, so there is a disparity in what poverty is: lack of information, lack of resources. Money is infinite. They never stop. They've never stopped printing money. The problem is getting the belief to understand that. Getting the belief that you're capable of being something, nothing against rapping and entertaining, but for a lot of people that come from my culture, that's the only way out. It's the only way out. That's it. If you can't rap, you can't play sports, then you're probably gonna sell drugs or do something illegal, because 87% of crimes are behind money.
Or just live a mediocre life.
Or just leave it, and so nobody wants that, right? And so now we understand that there are better opportunities in better segments just in white America, just 100%. But what happens is that can't be the defining part. Like, I know what I said, all right, cool, but what stops me? Well, what stops me is me. What stops me is me playing the blame game all my life. What stops me is me keep saying, well, I'm black, they white. Well, you're not gonna go far doing that. What stops me is saying, I didn't have the opportunities they have. That's gonna keep you from going there. If you can get past the bullshit and say, all right, these are real issues, but the biggest issue is the belief in myself. The biggest issue is I need to spend more time reading and researching than partying. I need to spend more time reading and researching than chasing women. I need to spend more time reading and researching than, trying to go hang out, being on Netflix all day, playing a game all day. I need to spend more time developing a skill set. Okay, boom. As I evolve, as I learn how the game is being played, as I get exposure to the game, my confidence builds up. So the reason why it is more The success barrier is high in a 2-parent home, a healthy 2-parent home. That's important.
I think though the stats are, and I'm sure just because the sort of average to healthy-ish homes, it just overwhelms
It is.
the number. But the statistics, and I don't remember the exact number, but your odds of living above the poverty line, it's over 70%, over 80%, something like that if you're in a 2-parent home.
Structure. So in a 2-parent home, there's a form of structure. There's a hierarchy, and then there's a man, there's a woman, and then there's kids. So now you have an infrastructure there. When you don't have, this is good. When you don't have a 2-parent home, not saying you can be successful, but now there's so many other different influences in your life. And I'll give myself, for example, right? Like, again, I'm homeless at 16, right? But
was your dad around when you were growing up?
I never even met my dad. Never, ever in my life, right? So now the influences became like anybody who I saw had, so when I'm looking at the hustlers, I'm like, all right, yo, like he got the girls, he got the respect, he got the money. That's who I want to be like. And so I'm getting that from him, I'm learning, I'm getting it from the hustlers, and then boom, debt, jail. But because that's the only image I have, this is what I'm holding on to, right? And then when I go to prison, you get with the OGs and they start telling you, yo, don't do this, don't do that. Okay, cool. Now I've pivoted, right? I've pivoted from this to this. Okay, so because this information is what's going to get me through prison. This the information that's going to keep me alive. This the information, this how I carry myself. This how I talk. This how I maneuver. This how okay, cool, I got it. But then you come home, when I come home, I'm a 26-year-old man. But guess what? I still never had a father. So I'm still missing something in my life. Still missing something. And honestly, that void didn't feel so I had my daughter, right? But then I'm missing that void. So now I'm still influenced by anything that I feel has structure, right? So that 2-parent home, even the father may not be the best or whatever, but it's structure. You understand his position in life. You understand his position in that family structure. You understand that mother's position. Structure is so important, it limits the mistakes. The less mistakes you can make on a journey, the easier it is to become successful.
Yeah, this to me, so this is a really important idea. This is what I talk about with business and mindset. I always tell people, you have to understand how the game works. And what I mean by that is there's a physics to everything. So there's a physics of business, so thinking from first principles, how these things are actually structured. And I think the big breakthrough, and I've heard you say this, and I think this is really smart, there's a difference between the basics and the fundamentals.
Yes.
The basics is just 101.
Yep.
So here are the sort of words and phrases that you're going to need. The fundamentals are the physics. This is how it works. And once you know how something works, then you can get good at it. But if you, and I really think the vast majority of humanity, and I don't care what class you're in, the vast majority of humanity does not understand how the world works.
Yep.
Therefore, they are at the mercy of the world. And the people that figure out how it works can change things. We'd use a negative word, say manipulate, but it really isn't that. Like, this is power. Close your eyes. Imagine a world better than this one. Open your eyes, get the skills to make that world come true, and go actually make it come true. That's fucking power.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to close your eyes, imagine something, open your eyes, and actually be able to create it. That's fucking power. So whether that's to change, people growing up in the inner cities, whether that's to create generational wealth in your own family, whether that's to learn architecture and build a bridge or a house, whatever. Like, that is the point. But to be able to do that, you have to understand how things work. And that is to me what is so powerful about you. You understand a game that a lot of people that are disenfranchised understand, the streets. And you're saying, motherfuckers, this is just physics. Let me show you the correlate over here. It's all the same shit.
It's the same. That's it. And so that's important for me, the understanding the basics and the fundamentals. Like, once you start understanding the fundamentals, you give yourself power, because you now understand, like you said, you see how the machine works, right? And so most people look at the machine and marvel and say most people look at the stock market, 98% of the people who I know look at the stock market and say, yo, that's not a game I can play. I'm staying away from it. And so the way it's set up is, the world is set up, well, listen, cool, I don't even want you to play it. Just give me your money, I'll play it for you.
Right.
So when we look at like banks, like we understand that banks don't necessarily work in our favor, right? So banks only give us 0.05% interest on the money we have there. Well, we can get 8% just by putting our money in the index fund. So why would I just sit my money in a bank and let the bank make all the money? Because all they're gonna do is invest the money for you. So they now operating as the plug. They operate now as the man who, I'm gonna front you this, I'm gonna make my money, I'm gonna take the cut, I'm gonna give you just enough to keep coming back. I'm gonna go to the plug. Who is the plug? The stock market, right? And so once I understood the fundamentals of like, the most important thing too is we don't understand how money works. That's a whole different language in its own. The relationship with money in my community is you make money, just enough to pay bills. And so once you get tired of paying bills, you say, you know what? I need to treat myself to something, right? No matter if I gotta go in debt, no matter if I need to treat myself to something to take this misery away. So you treat yourself to something that you can't afford at the time, right? But it makes you feel good in the moment. And so because it makes you feel good, you say, you know what? I'm living. This is a reprieve from everyday struggle. Let me get back on the hamster wheel. And so the sacrifice now becomes hard because now you're saying, I gotta work, and never get that reprieve. I'm not willing to do that, right? And so that's the mindset comes in and say, everybody around me had the same problem. No one represented the solution. So if I don't change something, I'm only gonna end up like everybody else I know. Somebody has the solution somewhere. There's too many people out here living the life of their dreams that I'm watching. They know something I don't know. And the only thing that they had was access to a different type of information. So once I went and got the information, I now wanted to sing from the mountaintop, like, yo, look at this dope thing I found. Everybody can be a part of it. And then when I showed it to people, they was like, that ain't it, bro. I'm not about to do that. And so I realized how powerful it was for me to, one, become economically like powerful in my mind. Because the thing about investing, especially in stocks, is that piece of ownership of everything that I use now makes me say, well, if I own that Apple, God, I don't care about buying an Apple phone. If I'm gonna wear Levi's and I'm gonna wear Timberlands, if I can own VFC Corp, then I own the stuff that I'm buying. I'm okay with that. Like that subtle shift in my mindset changed everything for me. Because now I was after just owning everything that I consumed. In the beginning, that was my introduction to the game. Let me just own everything I consume and then I'll feel okay. And then one dope thing happened to me. In 2010, this is after I'm home from prison now, right? I'm home from prison. I'm back in the streets hustling. Because even though I have the information, I don't have the money. Right? And I'm like, well, shit, I gotta get the money. My door gets kicked in 2010. They get 8 pounds of weed, $10,000. Yeah, by the cops. 8 pounds of weed, $10,000, a 223, a 40 with extended clip and a beam, and 100 X pills. So the cop tells me, you ain't learned your lesson. Like, you ain't learned your lesson. And I was like, damn, that was some dumb shit. Right? Like, I got knowledge, I got information, but I still fell victim to the same shit that everybody around me knew. So therefore, the knowledge that I had wasn't powerful because it wasn't applied. So I was fortunate, God bless me. I wound up getting found out guilty because it's called fruit of a poisonous tree. So they kicked in my door, but they didn't have probable cause because they stopped me in my truck, didn't find nothing on me. So they went to my house, kicked the door in with no search warrant. So now everything you find is null and void. That's purpose, man, because that's not supposed to happen, right? I'm thankful for that all the time. And then, but that put me in a situation because now, even though it cost me $60,000 to beat that charge, I don't have no money. So now I get into the robbing game. So now I start robbing dope dealers, right? Because an OG told me that a person who works a job every day, they not a part of this game. So they not fair game. You don't mess with them. But somebody who sells a nickel bag, he fair game. A shark don't care if it's a tuna or whatever. If you in the ocean swimming, you fair game. And so I started robbing dope dealers at the time because I was like, yo, if you want, you can't call the police. If you want to see me, I'm with it. And I got in a situation where I was good at it. Me and my partner, God bless his soul. And then one day I almost got killed. And I go to my partner and I say, bro, I'm out. Like, that's a done deal. But when they kicked my door in, something happened. So they took my truck, they took my money, but they didn't mess with my stock account. It didn't freeze, it didn't. I said, hold up. They don't think I'm smart enough for this. In the book, 48 Laws of Power, it says, never underestimate your opponent. And at that point, I realized that America underestimates us. And it's from a class issue because we've never said we're capable of doing this. It's a game we just didn't play. So I said, okay, God, what do you want me to do? All I know how to do is be a hustler. And the voice from 1999 comes in my head and says, you're just playing the wrong game. I said, oh, okay. Start working as an iron worker, building stadiums, building power plants. It's crazy because I was making good money, $2,000 a week. That's good money to something. Like, yo, $2,000 a week, yo, that's it. $2,000, $2,500, like it was amazing. I started saving and investing 70% of my money.
God damn.
I was living bare minimum. I was like, if I'm gonna change, I gotta make like the hard choices. It's hard for people to make sacrifice because you gotta now go against and do without some of the things that gives you that momentary gratification, that simple, that's what keeps you alive. That's what keeps you going. Just to go on vacation one time a year, to get these pair of shoes that may cost me $1,000. I know I can't afford them, but I've worked so hard, I need that just to keep giving me something. And so I was like, okay. And once I started doing it, man, and I started showing my homies in the street that it was a game changer. It changed my life.
What are you showing them, your portfolio?
No, I was showing, I was like, yo, look, I'm about to end. This before Robinhood even existed, right? So I'm on E-Trade at the time. And I'm like, bro, check this out. Man, we go to the club, bro, and we buy bottles, Hennessy. We buy Moet. We buy Louis Vuitton. We buy Fendi. Yo, we can own that. It was like, what? Like, yo, there's a stock called LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy. But you can get it on the market as LVMUY because it's in France. And it was like, what? I'm like, man, look. I'm like, listen, bro, we upgrade our iPhones every year. We can own Apple. And so now we own Apple, we own iPod. Bro, we wear Timberlands every day. And so that was like, they got it, but it was like, I see it, but I don't know. And I was like, all right. And so then I had an idea. I said, check this out. We know the end result of being in prison. I've been shot, you've been shot, you've been shot. We've did some shooting, we've all been to jail. Who suffers? Like your kids, your moms, your girl. I said, at least what we gotta do is if we gonna play the game, we gotta at least reward them for us playing the game. I was like, so what we gotta do is invest our money for them. So we making $5,000 a week. If we can do that, if we can make $20,000, but we gotta give them something. If it ain't cash, we gotta at least put something up for them. Because if we gone for 10 years, what they gonna do? We can at least have that for them. And then I was telling one of my partners, I was like, listen, bro, you need to invest the money, because he was making more money than me. I said, what happens when you get knocked off? Because one thing in the street, you know your time is coming. So you live the game until it's your time. You understand that. What happens when you go do a 5-10 year bid and you come home and nobody can give you money? At least if you got it in the stock market, when you come home, you up. Your money been working for you for 10 years, 5 years. You ain't gotta ask nobody for nothing. You can go up to the re-up, man, with what you got. He was like, damn, that's smart, bro. And so my idea was like, how do we start changing the mindset? And some people might be like, but why would you tell them that? Because what happens is you gotta start somewhere. You gotta make the game winnable in the language that we can understand. And so once you learn English, now you say, you know what, I wanna learn Spanish, I wanna learn French, I wanna learn that, because now you understand the power of words. Right. And so once they started understanding the power of the game, it was like, okay, I can play this game. And so it was powerful for me when my homies in the street started investing their money. That was a game changer for me. When my homies in the street who didn't finish school, who didn't go to college, started telling me, man, I bought some Apple, bruh. I bought some Microsoft, bruh. I bought some Nike, bro, because I'm about to get them new J's. So I'm out, like, that was powerful for me.
Yeah.
We made the game winnable.
Dude, you have a phrase, Wall Street looks like us now.
Wall Street looks like us now.
There's another phrase you say, but you should like put that same like fucking stamp on it, is I own that.
I own that.
Because you talk about stocks in a way that sounds so rad, where it's like you refer to yourself as an owner of the companies.
Yes.
And the thing is, it actually is true. Like you're not playing a linguistic game. It is true. But people don't think about it like that. But it's so much more powerful than having a cool pair of kicks, is to say I own the company that makes those kicks, or I own the company that makes that phone, or Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, works for me. I'm a shareholder, right?
Yeah.
It's really, really powerful. Explain that basic idea of ownership for people that might not quite put it together that stocks really are owning that company.
So I actually got that term from Warren Buffett in one of his meetings. I want to say it was the 1995 shareholder meeting, and he said that owning a stock is owning a percentage of a great business. And so once I understood that concept, I understood that the key to wealth is through ownership. Like that was one of the things that made it click, because I studied the wealthy people. Like I studied them. And I was like, damn. Even when you go back to Black Wall Street, O.W. Gurley, the reason why he has the 40 acres and those acreages, one of the things he did was he said, I'm going to sell these pieces to my people so they can have ownership. I was like, damn. When you study Reginald White, one of the first black men to make $1 billion on Wall Street, it was about, he wanted it to have ownership. So I said, the key to building wealth is not how much you can work. You can't work your way to wealth. You got to invest your way there. And all wealthy people, black, white, Asian, Chinese, they own a whole bunch of shit. The people who aren't wealthy is because they don't own nothing. You only have your money sitting in cash. If your money is just sitting in cash, realistically, you're becoming poorer every day.
Right, or they own depreciating assets.
And that's what cash is. It's a depreciating asset, because the more money they print, the more money that money loses value. Right. So if it's just sitting, it's the reason why the bank wants you to have your money there, so they can take it and use it and invest it so much and be like, hey, it's just sitting, I'm gonna give you 50 cents on whatever you had in there. Right. And so the idea of ownership was, we can just start owning everything that no matter if it's just a stock. Like that's powerful, because if you can start owning the businesses that you now consume every day, you turn a one-time transaction to a lifetime of profit. And that was major for me, because if I go to the store and buy a pair of Nikes, that's a one-time transaction. In order for me to get something from them again, I got to come back and buy another pair of Nikes. But if I own the Nike stock, long as I own it, it's a profitable vehicle for me. So that one-time transaction can become a lifetime of profit if I own that business. If I'm gonna buy Apple, if I know I'm an Apple user, if I know I got the phone, I got the AirPods, I got the MacBook, I got the PC, I excited when Apple's about to drop something, why wouldn't I own it? As much of it as I can, right? Like if I understand that concept, if I know America has one of the biggest trash problems in the world, right? So if I know that Waste Management is a company that's gonna be here forever because we aren't gonna stop throwing things away, why don't I own that company? Because I know everybody throws things away. And so now, instead of me getting excited about Apple Line being around the corner because it's a new phone, I'm like, y'all about to make me some money, right? So when I hear a company like Waste Management has bought 40 acres of disposable land for another landfill, I'm excited about that. And another great thing about the stock market is, for me, it now makes me pay attention to the world. And so now I understand what's going on in the world. I started learning business cycles, market cycles. You know what I'm saying? Like, because now I can understand, this is okay. Things are going out of business. Okay, we're in this cycle. Okay, people are hiring. Okay, we're in expansion cycle. And so now I took an economic class on my own without just understanding the world. And so you start understanding when something is happening in China. Okay, something happening in China, so I own Apple. Apple has 20% of their revenue in China. Okay, they might take a little hit right now. You know what I'm saying? So the stock market helped me start understanding how the world moves, the fundamentals. Right? And so that's important.
You can reboot your life, your health, even your career, anything you want. All you need is discipline. I can teach you the tactics that I learned while growing a billion-dollar business that will allow you to see your goals through. Whether you want better health, stronger relationships, a more successful career, any of that is possible with the mindset and business programs in Impact Theory University. Join the thousands of students who have already accomplished amazing things. Tap now for a free trial and get started today. I really hope people, I really hope people pay close attention to you, because even in this interview, they're not going to understand how much you know. And I've listened to hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of your footage, and I'm just like, fuck. So one thing I want to be on record as saying, and you can play this on a loop on your fucking website, whatever, is that I can afford any money manager I want, and you are as knowledgeable as the money manager that I have. I'm very impressed with your ability to explain these concepts. And so that's important to me for a couple of reasons. One, there are certain people that are only going to listen to you. So it's great. So they now have access to, I'm telling you, world-class information. And then number two is the journey that you've been on. You started on the streets, were homeless, in prison, like really caught up in the lifestyle. And through knowledge, you have transformed your life and your family's life. And if they can believe that you can do it, they have what I call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is this: if you put time and energy into getting better at something, you will actually get better at that.
Hell yeah.
And that is true for every human. Now, why is that the only belief that matters? Because your behaviors follow your beliefs, and only behaviors matter. So if you invest in the stock market, even if you don't believe in it, your investment could still go up. If you believe in the stock market and know it's the surest path to wealth, but don't invest in the stock market, you'll never reap the gains. So getting people to believe that they can get better, because what you've done is just read and study and research and spend time watching CNBC, and then you look, like I heard you once explain, oh, I'll see a ticker symbol go by that I don't know it. I don't sit there and waste time that I don't know it. I just go look it up.
Yeah.
And so now that's another ticker symbol. And for anybody that just heard ticker symbols, like, what the fuck is a ticker symbol? Go look it up. Right? So you're such a powerful example of the power of knowledge. I think that's really, really interesting. So yeah, I hope that this is, for people that didn't know you before coming into this interview, hopefully they'll spend more time, because they'll see just how much you know.
Man, thank you for that. And I understand that knowledge is what gives us leverage in life. It's not about how strong you are. It's about what you can learn. And then how can you actively apply that? I have this acronym called FEAR. Finally exiting average reality, right? And what happens is, until we can overcome the fear, some people actually fear success. Success comes with a lot, right? But until you can overcome that average reality that you live in, no matter what you're on, once you become comfortable there, it becomes average. Anyone can live in average. Everyone can live in mediocrity, right? Then there's those outliers who consistently push themselves to go to the next level. LeBron spends $1 million on his body, working out, eating right, agility, mobility, because he will never be average. And the thing about the human mind and the human body, it will go as far as you push it, right? There's science that says that Gandhi levitated before. The power of the mind. So you may look at it like, man, nobody can't levitate. You out of your mind. But there's a level of meditation, concentration, that you can lock into that can take you there, as long as you believe in it. Like you said, the only belief that matters is, what do you believe you can do? I personally believe that there is nothing I cannot do. And for me, it's all about impact, purpose, fulfillment. Like, the money is a byproduct of everything else. That isn't my focus. My focus is I have a knowledge and information that I know that can change lives. Not just one life, not just like lives. And so the way that you change lives is by consistently learning, finding new ways to put that information out there, being able to open up, being able to be vulnerable, because people need to connect. People connect to knowledge in the way that they can see two things that help people: imagery and vocabulary. What they see and what they hear, right? So most people won't connect to a certain knowledge because the people who speak it don't relate, and two, can't speak the knowledge in the way that they can eat it. So for me, it's always about how do I attain as much, it's always a challenge for me. How can I attain as much knowledge as I can because I love learning, but then how do I take that and be able to now reciprocate it or give it to somebody who may not understand calculus or trigonometry, but if I can give it to them in this way, they can say, oh yeah, I got it. And there's more people that struggled in the world that has become successful. So struggle has to become a language that I struggle. So that's the language I'm great at. So if I can break down things into a struggle language, now I make it the game winnable for everybody. And that's the goal, to make the game winnable for everybody who's bold enough to step into the batting cage. If you bold enough to do that, I was bold enough to jump in a goddamn 152-foot tank with sharks in Dubai. If you're bold enough to do it, there's an experience that comes from that. And that experience is so exhilarating, it will take you to the next level. Because now you keep chasing the next level of you. And that is when you start understanding life at a whole nother concept, when you start understanding that, yo, for the longest, I was just low-level living. I was low-level thinking. Now that I've been exposed to something, and I say this often, whatever you haven't been exposed to isn't your fault. Once you get exposed to it, you now are accountable for it. And so once I've become exposed to so much knowledge and information, once I expose you to it, you're accountable because now you can no longer say, I didn't know.
What do you say to people that don't think they have enough money to invest?
So the important thing for me to tell them is start where you are. You build a house brick by brick. I mean, of course, you can get a house put together all at once. We live in that world now.
I get the idea.
Right? But you build a mansion, you build an empire, you build it brick by brick. Like you start with $25. And we have to understand, RIP to Nip, man, the great, he says something that's phenomenal. He said, we on a marathon. We didn't get into our situation overnight. Right? If we look back at our situation, you see you inherited that, whatever it is, that poverty. You inherited that mindset, that idea of scarcity, that idea that you don't have enough money. You inherited that. Building wealth becomes a revolutionary act because now you start saying, I'm gonna go against what I was taught, right? And so I say by starting with $25. If you can do $25 a month, that's cool. If you can do $25 a week, that's cool. But what happens is, once you start understanding the power of how your money works, you'll start saying, yo, I don't need to do that because that's taken away from this. That 25 will now become $50. Guaranteed. That 50 will now become 100 because you're gonna start doing more with less. My focus is how do we now contribute to every person's family, increasing their purchasing power, right?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Tell me more about it. What do you mean? So you're not interested in focusing on the wealth gap? That's just the wrong thing to look at?
Yeah, I think that's the wrong. So how can we, so I'm always.
Because it's about comparison? Why not focus on that?
So, well, when you think about this, so you say, okay, the wealth gap is growing. Okay, well, when you look at it, if someone has a 200-year, America, as it was built, right? So the slaves now have to catch up to where the slave master was. If we're looking at it like that, like that's hard. It's a race you can never win. So if you're coming from poor, you trying to close a group of people who've had a 300-year head start on you. Like even if you're looking at it like that, you can't win, because you coming at it from a defeatist, from a victim viewpoint. Man, they have 4 years head start on me. I can never catch up. No, that's not my thing. Like the wealthy people already know how to build wealth. They're gonna keep on compounding their wealth. They're gonna keep on making sure they make the right investments. They're gonna keep on making sure they build businesses. They're gonna keep on making sure that they're ahead of this curve. Okay, the economy's gonna crash. Guess who's gonna win more money than all in a recession? The wealthy people. Why? Because poor people are panicking right now. We talked about inflation going up. Well, guess the average person in America spends more money on transportation, bills, and food. No matter who you are, those are the big three, right? Well, if you're poor, then now, because inflation is so high, that instead of eating up 50% of your paycheck, now it's eat up 75% of your paycheck, right? But if you're already in the upper echelon, you was gonna do that anyway, it didn't matter. Because you still have investments, you still know how to maneuver in this type of market. So why waste time, to me, why waste time on saying, yo, how do we close the wealth gap? No, that's not my fight. My fight is, How do we get the information that help us participate in the game?
And the values.
How do we get that?
Yeah, I see you pushing both, which I think is really, really interesting and super important, not closing the wealth gap. So it's interesting. I also think it's the wrong place to look. I won't deny. So when you look at, right now, baby boomers have a lot of wealth in their bank accounts. There's about to be a huge transference of wealth.
26 trillion.
Since I was, how old was I? That's a big number. It's a big number. When I was 21, I received the last dime from my family that I ever received. And I graduated with college debt. And my dad literally did a countdown. I'm actually grateful to him for this. So he did a countdown, 5 more months, 4 more months, 3 more months, 2 more months, every time he'd send my rent check. So basically he paid my rent through college. And then that was it. And he wanted me to know, the day you graduate, that's it. There's no more. And so when I think about, okay, after that, I got an education, 100%, fair enough. But this is why my punchline is going to be, it's the information, not the money.
Always.
So I was literally broke. The scrounging in the couch cushions is actually a real story. At the time, I was so traumatized, but now it makes such a good story. I'm so glad that that actually happened. Imagine being so desperate, which I know you will not struggle with, being so desperate to put gas in your car. You're like, maybe change has fallen out of people's pockets in the couch and I can get 75 cents or whatever to put gas in my car. It's crazy. And so I was super poor and then turned my life around. I should say I was broke. I was broke and then completely changed my financial situation with information. So I struggle a little bit with the idea of the wealth gap is increasing. What I would say is the compounding effect in any one life of knowledge and the knowledge that's driven from the values that you have. That's where this gets problematic. Because any one person, maybe statistically, but any one person, barring a big inheritance, which my parents are boomers and I have given my parents more money than they will ever be able to give me. So that certainly is not something that I'm going to reap any benefit from. But in my own lifetime, I was able to, gazillion X my own return.
What was that switch though?
When I went from thinking of myself as a finite entity, that what you know is what you know. You're as smart as you're going to be, and so that's that. To realizing that I could learn and get better. And so it's a little bit like, imagine, so in poker, I forget the type of poker where you start, in fact, it's just like Texas Hold'em. So you're dealt 2 cards, and then they're gonna lay 3 cards down in front of you. That is life. So now you're like, okay.
The river.
100%, I've got something, and this may suck. What I'm holding in my hands may suck, but how do I play it? Am I good at reading other people? Am I good at bluffing? Whatever. So some ability, some luck. That 100% is life. But according to the science, 50% of who you are is hardwired, 50% is entirely malleable.
I agree.
And so it's, what are you doing to make use of the 50%? And so I just want people to obsess over that. Like, you can get 100 times better at anything. I'm never going to be better than LeBron James at basketball.
Right.
But I can be 100 times better than I am today if I completely gave myself over to it and was like, I'm going to get good at that.
1% better every day. That's literally my thing. Like, how I'm always, so this is a switch I had to make in business. So I had to, because I see, so we have this thing, like, because so many people have gained so much success during these last couple years. One of the things I did on Instagram was I unfollowed everybody. I unfollowed everybody because I started seeing how it was shifting my vision. I started seeing how I started comparing myself. I started seeing how, like, we was doing great things. We building the team up. Like, I'm stepping into the CEO mode. I'm going out. I'm going to the different conferences. I'm going to the different masterminds. I'm getting the information. I'm applying it, and I'm seeing the 10x results. But then I'm saying, damn, I'm comparing myself to this person. damn, what I just did, damn, this ain't enough. And so what I started, I just unfollowed everybody. And I said, I'm only following fitness people and TD Jakes. That's the only person I follow, right? Because fitness is important to me right now. And then TD Jakes, because I love to get that. I think he is the greatest speaker of our era. Just for me, I think he's the greatest speaker of our era. The way he can deliver a message. He's not just a pastor about God. He talks about life. He talks about business. And what happened to me in that moment was I was able to lock in on me. Because what happens is we can get comfortable. I always talk about this fear, finally exiting average reality. I always talk about that because even if you amass so much success or you amass hitting different levels, after a time that becomes your average and you'll get comfortable there. And if you get comfortable there, you can only stay there for so long before you lose it all. Because comfort, nothing happens in a comfortable space but sleep. Sit. Once you get comfortable, you get tired. You get comfortable, you doze off. And so for me, it allowed me to gather all my information and apply it and then just build and then become better. And then I started looking at people like you, studying what you're doing as I build out this platform. Studying people like you, study what CNBC doing, studying people who are operating at a high level and saying what I know is nothing and being better than who I was yesterday. Like, how do I be better than a trap from yesterday? What did I do? And I do this every day now. I've been doing this for the last 90 days. At the end of my day, I analyze what I did in that day. How much did I do that helped me? What did I do that didn't tell me go nowhere? And then how do I get up the next day and attack full throttle? And then I came up with fail. Fear always interrupts legacy. Fail. Be willing to do it. Be willing to get past the fear because the fear interrupts the legacy that you're trying to build, that you're going after. And so if I'm going after legacy, I got to do more than be consistent. We talked about this earlier. I got to do more than be consistent. That is part of the equation. But in the consistency, how do I keep growing? How do I stay motivated? And what are those tweaks that I have to make along the way? I can't make those decisions and I'm always looking at everybody else. And so I've learned to be like, all right, this is how we operate. High octane, high level, 93. This is what we doing every day. And so now I'm not just being a great communicator, but building wealth for my family, mastering the markets. Like in my mind, I read a thing that Warren Buffett said, he reads 500 pages a day. That pisses me off because after about 30 pages, I go to sleep, right? I get tired. I'm like, how does he do it, right? So he's listening to Audible books. So now that's the challenge because he's the apex investor, right? He's the apex investor to me. Like he is top of the food chain in what I'm loving to do. I love the stock market. So if he's apex and he does this, it shows that I have a lot of stuff to grow toward, right? Because he's 90 something years old and he's still learning. Again, we go back to information, right? He's accomplished something that most people would never. He's the richest man in the world at one point in his life, right? That means at 40 years old, I have a whole bunch of learning to do. And so I become the learning machine. How can I read as many books as I can to become better? How can I easily become comfortable with what I learn and invest in? Like we've done great things. We've taught a lot of people, but how do we get better? And if we focus on getting better every day, the compound effect, how do I not only compound my wealth, but how do I compound the information? How do I compound my growth? Because who I am right now is a compound effect of what I was 3, 4, 5 years ago. And everybody needs to understand that. Who you are now is not because of the decision you made yesterday. These are compounded decisions that you've made that evolved in what you are right now. And so now I want to compound. What do I compound into the future? How do I compound the best version of me in the next 3 years, 5 years? How I become the apex trap? How do I do that? Like that's the goal. That's what we shooting and aiming for. And then how do we impact as many people as we can? How do I go in every hood? How do I go in every ghetto? How do I go in every prison system and say, yep, I was homeless too, family. Yep, I got shot too, family. Yep, I went to prison for attempt murder, armed robbery, family. Yep, but guess what I did? I learned how to play the market. It's the best game you can ever learn because it don't care what color you is. It don't care about none of the excuses. Don't care if you got 3 felonies. Don't care if you got 2 felonies. It don't care what you got. Can you play the game? And if you can play the game at a high level, the return on investment is infinite. And if we can play that like that, and if I can do that, and if I can keep being that person that people see and be like, yep, he did it. He relatable. So he talk about stocks, but he do it in a hoodie, he do it in a t-shirt, he do it with the sunglasses on, he talking in a way that we can understand it, then I could do it too. And that's representation. That's me being the best version of myself. That's me showing that wealth is attainable, one share at a time. Why? 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 shares become 8 shares, 8 shares become 16 shares. People don't invest in the stock market because they don't feel like they got enough money. That's why my mantra is 1 share at a time. Right? And from that, it becomes attainable. People don't want to go after wealth because they feel like it ain't fun. The belief system. We talked about the financial trauma. What are the beliefs that you anchor to that keep you from moving forward? How do we cut those beliefs? How do we unanchor ourselves from the lack or the scarcity? How do we unanchor ourselves from that? When we got people in this world worth billions of dollars, that means the money is there. They got information, they got structure, they got community, right? When I look at you, I look at your team, you got people around. You ain't just building this by yourself, and I'm pretty sure you thankful for them all the time.
More than you know. I'm becoming more and more obsessed with this.
Yeah.
So look, I've built things in my life, and so I know the power of people. But the longer I stay in the game, the more I'm just like, dude, the amount that you can do by yourself is amazing. It'll startle you.
Right.
But as you get into real scale, you realize, wow, the amount I can do by myself is really paltry compared to what I really want to do. And it really does come down to people. Like, how awesome are your people? And this is the hard part, man. I love to see people succeed. But the problem is that leaves me open to creating space for B and C players to make me feel like they're gonna make it, they're gonna change. And then I'm fatiguing myself by carrying them. And that's hard. That's hard. Because it's like, damn, you don't want people acting out of fear. You don't want them being, thinking that you want them to know that you care about them, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Word. Okay, I subscribe to that. But let me tell you, there's an advanced class to that. And people don't perform until they know that there's fucking standards. And those standards are going to be met. Culture, values, what you celebrate. It's a tricky line to walk, man. It's a real tricky line to walk because I attract people that have seen the content. So some ungodly number of our team here saw the content first, came on board. So they saw me as a beacon of hope, and then they get in and I'm like, yo, we're fucking warriors here. We don't play around.
Yeah.
And so, man, it's so important to make sure the people around you adhere to a standard. It's important to give them a chance to grow and get better. You gotta have a standard, man.
That's a fine line.
Have a standard. It is. It's hard. Like even now at this stage of my career, you'd think I like have this down pat. It's hard.
Yeah, because I know as I'm building, just on my journey, I think again I'm never comfortable, right? Because I always, again, when I see you, I'm like, yep, he's still going, and I study the game, and I think everybody should study the game that they play. Right, study the people. Even I tell people that's in Wall Street, like study the game, study the rules, and study the plays. Right? What I mean by that is study the game. What is the broad goal of the game? What is the goal? What is the ramifications? That's it. Then study the players. Who's playing at a high level in the game, in the field that you're going? Because that's going to be what you're looking at. You can see their strengths, you can see their weaknesses, and then what plays do they love to run? Right? Like every team, when you think about the Lakers, you go. Like you're the head coach for Impact Theory, you know what I'm saying? And then your team, everybody has strong suits. So when you look at the Lakers under Phil Jackson, triangle offense, mastered it, right? When you study Bill Belichick, he did what's called, I forgot what it's called, but like he didn't run plays. They ran plays based on wherever they were on the field and how much time was on the clock. That's how he called plays. And so you look at the players in the game, what are their strong points? So when I'm looking at, okay, damn, Tom's doing 1 million views. All right, like what is the sauce that he's doing? What is it that they're learning? What is it how is he impacting people? I'm always looking, when I'm looking at investments, what is Warren Buffett really good at? What is Joel Greenback really good at? What is Peter Lynch really good at? So I can study it. And then I want to study everything they told me when they messed up, the mistakes they made. Like, that's how you get better. This is why football players and athletes get better, because they study film. We want to become successful investors. We want to build wealth, but we don't want to study the film. We want to freestyle our way to wealth. I'm gonna put $100 right here, it's gonna make me $1 million. Nope, that ain't gonna happen, fam. I can guarantee you that ain't gonna happen, right? But how do I study the film? How did you compound to success, right? It wasn't one thing. How did that 10 years turn into overnight success? Because that's what people don't know. You see the successful Wallstreet Trapper, but what happened when I was homeless? Like real homeless, not just I moved out my mama's house. No, homeless because you don't got nowhere to go. Because my mama went to prison, and because my family members at the time, they had their own thing going on. So I had nowhere to go. What did I do when I was sleeping in an abandoned house? What did I do when I was sleeping in a corner in that crack house where everybody smoking crack out of coke cans, out of crack pipes? I'm in a back room. Like, what did I do in those moments? Right? What did I do when I was sleeping in an abandoned house? What did I do when I was sleeping in abandoned cars? What did I do in those moments? Those are the moments you don't see, but those are the moments of when I'm figuring out, damn, where do I go with my business? And I'm stuck. Those are the moments that give birth. Boom, here we go. What do we do then? We never gave up, right? And so being able to use those dark moments in your life as a moment of empowerment instead of victimizing yourself. How long will you hold on to the victim mentality? And most people are so great at that. Most people are so great at holding on to the victim aspect of anything. When it comes to building wealth, you can put it up right. I put up a clip on my Instagram the other day where the guy was saying that white Americans are successful in America not because of anything other than they know how to maneuver during certain economic environments, politics, recessions. They understand. And I was like, and so many people in my post was like, well, let's not forget about slavery. You'll never become successful if you hold on to that. Yep, that did happen. But are you going to hold on to that for 400 more years? Are you? Because if you are, stay there. But if you can say, how can I learn? How can I learn from something that maybe the people before me didn't learn from? Where is the gap? What didn't they get? When I look at civil rights leaders, like every generation has to transform into something else. I was civil rights leader. When you look at Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, two of my favorite black men of all time, they didn't even have time to get into the money component because they fought about civil rights, right? And so now when you evolve, those leaders no longer exist. No, there's no leadership. And so now everyone is trying to freestyle their way to success, freestyle their way to freedom. And all they have to look at is the past. Damn, slavery. We can't keep going back there, right? We can acknowledge it. We can get history and culture from it, but we can't anchor ourselves to it. We cannot. I can't anchor myself to the fact that my mama did drugs, my mama sold drugs. I can't let that be a reason why I don't be successful. Yep, it's painful. Yep, I went through it. Like, imagine what it looks like to see your mom get shot in front of you. That is a painful, traumatic experience, right? And then to couple back maybe 5-6 years later, and you see your mama overdose on drugs. She didn't die. That's another painful, traumatic experience that I can anchor my life to that. And then we can add on to the fact that I felt abandoned, right? That nobody was there for me. I can hold on to that. I got all the right to hold on to it, right? I got another. I never saw my father before. I don't know my father. Boom, let's hold on to that too, right? And so now I'm anchoring myself to all of these traumatic experiences, and now I'm giving myself an excuse not to be shit. I never had a father, so I'm not gonna be a good father to this beautiful little girl I gave birth to. I can hold all of those traumatic experiences in a ball and let that be my core. Instead, I cut that and release that shit and say, you know what? Because I didn't have a father, I'm gonna be an amazing father. Because I saw my mama do drugs, I saw my mama sell drugs. That was her traumatic experience. I went through some of it, but guess what? I'm gonna be better than that. And I'm gonna show my mama a better life. I'm gonna show her that I appreciate everything she went through, but here's a better life. Right? Because my people went through whatever they went through, I'm the reason to say I want all of my ancestors, I want them to be proud and say, you know what? That's it right there. He stood on integrity. He stood on it. He was honest. He built a different type of culture. Not just his family, but for the people around him. Somebody got to be the pioneer. Somebody got to be the trailblazer. Somebody got to be willing to take the risk to change. And so that's what I represent. That's what I won't stand for. And I won't do it my way. I won't do it my way, man.
You know, I love my kid, whatever, but they're really struggling in life. How can I help them? And my answer is usually you can't. And then the person's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I love them so much. They're my kid. Like, I can't give up. And I'm like, okay, for real? You want to know how you're going to change their life? Yeah, tell me. Okay, cool. You're going to have to kidnap them. But Trap, and I actually mean this seriously.
Right.
This would work.
Right.
It's the only thing I know that would work.
Talk to me.
You're going to kidnap them. You're going to take them to a remote place in the fucking desert, whatever. You're going to take them somewhere away from everybody else. I usually say a deserted island. You can take them to a deserted island. But on that deserted island must be a group of people that they respect. If you are around people you respect, you will want to win their respect. To win their respect, you must conform to their behaviors. If their behaviors are honorable, you're now conforming to earn their respect to honorable behaviors. And now you get where somebody will turn their life around to fit in. Now they can turn their life around to fit in and go in the wrong direction, which is how you get influenced on the streets, or you can get influenced in the exact opposite direction. So you have to be careful about who you emulate.
Come on. But I like that. Before you go, I like that because that's even, not even with kids, but even as adults, that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
Like I had to get around a different set of people who helped me evolve. Because even in that, where you're being influenced, you don't evolve in that space, right? You adapt and you conform to whatever that environment is. And so if you get around, that's why the old saying, if you're around 5-6 millionaires, you become the sixth one. It's because you start to take on those values. You start taking on those principles that they stand on, right? Those conversations become like impregnated in you. Those behaviors, like, damn, Tom gets up in the morning, he does this, he does that. Damn, I need to do that. Trap does this, Trap does that. Damn, I need to do that. This is why I love mentorships. This is why I love masterminds. This is why I do that. I asked you one time, hey, yo, give me a mastermind I can get into. It's because when I'm around successful people, I'm gonna go into the room. I don't care how much success I've amassed. I'm going into the room like I don't know nothing because that's where I want to evolve to. So that is, you're not pushing the line. You're only touching a hot stove to people who are fighting for beliefs that don't benefit them.
God damn. But most people fight for those beliefs, dude.
Yes, they do.
It's really interesting to me. So, okay, I've thought a lot about this because I spent a portion of my life fighting for beliefs that didn't serve me. And I don't know if this is a useful story to tell myself, but it makes me chuckle and it feels way too close to the truth. I'm just dumb enough that I have to learn everything the hard way. And I'm just smart enough to be able to figure it out. So I actually do learn. And then I can articulate it to people because I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I tripped up on. So for a long time, I had a set of beliefs that were really stupid, meaning that they actually moved me away from my stated goal. They were moving me towards a silent goal. I know you journal. I highly encourage people to journal so you can figure out like what are the subconscious things that are driving you. But what I wanted out of life subconsciously was to feel smart. And I had a certain idea of what intelligence was, and everything that lined up with things that made me feel that I was intelligent in the way that I subconsciously defined it, I kept doing. So I ended up in smaller and smaller rooms. So after graduating college, I was working retail in a game store selling video games. And like, not minimum wage, but like not a long way from it. And I remember thinking, why am I doing this? And I'm doing it because the boss of the place is like, why do you work here? He's like, you're too smart for this. And I was like, that makes me feel good. Now, of course, I wasn't thinking that in my head. It just made me feel good. And so I kept doing it. And I realized looking back, okay, what I do is I structure my life so that people tell me I'm smart. And that is super dangerous because it's led me into these really small rooms. And so things didn't turn around until I was like, oh, wait a second. I don't read a book so someone will tell me I'm smart. I read a book so I can get better at something. And I really want people to understand that skills have utility. They let you do something. So if you get good at investing, you can make a lot of money.
Yes.
If you get good at architecture, you can build buildings. You can build a bridge that people can drive cars across. Do you know how crazy that is?
Yeah.
You can be the next Elon Musk, whatever. And understanding, oh, wait a second. I don't need to be smart. I need to be good at learning.
Oh, yes.
And that changed my life. But that becomes a value system. What do I value in myself? Do I value being smart? Or worse, do I value people telling me I'm smart? Because what if I was smart, but everybody was telling me I was dumb? I would have done different things back then just so that people would tell me I was smart, because I didn't believe it myself. And my value system was people that have this kind of intelligence, kind of the way that people fetishize money, I fetishized being smart. And so it was like, oh, I just want to be smart like that. That'd be so cool. And once I realized, oh, that's a value system, I can change my value system and now pursue something else and get all of the sort of neurochemical rewards and feel good and be excited about being the learner. And so then once I started doing that, then I actually started getting good, because I was just obsessed with learning, setting my ego aside, walking in like I know nothing, and just saying, oh my God, like, make me better. Now, the reason that I got so obsessed with that was because I realized they actually can make me better, and then I can go do something somebody else can't do, and I can get ahead in life, and I can get wealthy, and I can build what I want to build, and I can control my time, and I can impress people if that's a thing. And so it's like, whoa, this is all about skills. But skills are controlled by values.
So I love that, because in setting yourself up for success and setting yourself, I say you have to be intentional about something, right? And so for me, the intentionality was, what do I have to learn that takes me away from that? Like, what do I have to learn so I don't go back to prison? What do I have to learn so that I don't become dead before a certain age? And then I got past that. And then I was like, what do I have to learn to become a great father? Like right now I'm learning how to be a father, right? How to be a great father. We talked about journaling. One of the things I tell my daughter right now is, okay, write down how you feel and then we can talk about that, right? It's easier for her to do it that way than sometimes having that conversation with me. So write it down and then we can talk about it. Well, those values now help me keep evolving, because if I want to be the best version of who I am, if I want to be the most impactful person, then I have to install in me a certain set of values: integrity, right? Honesty, the commitment to being better.
Why those?
Well, because where I come from.
Why honesty? You could lie.
Honesty is so important, because if you tell people the truth, and if you are committed to understanding other people's truth, then people don't like the truth because how it makes them feel. But if you tell the truth, they have no other option but to face it, right? They have no other option but to say, damn, okay. Truth is like a harsh reality that everybody wants, but nobody wants to give, right? But honesty comes in as saying, you know what? That's a value system that so many people don't have. And for me, if I can be honest, then my name can go a long way. If I can be honest, then my presence will precede me, right? So honesty is something that people often don't want to do. They'll say something like, I lie to you because I love you. I don't tell you the truth because I don't want to hurt you, right? Well, if you're honest to me, then I can make that decision. If you're being honest, I can make that decision on whether I want to move forward or not. If I'm honest with you, then I know I can do business with this man because he's an honest man. I can do business with this woman because she's an honest woman, because I know there's no back end stuff. There's nothing they're trying to do behind my back. Honesty is something that's so underrated. But for me, even in the streets, like, honesty is so not there, because everyone wants the edge. Everyone wants, murder is not off the table. You know what I'm saying? It's not off the table. Most people in the street get killed by somebody they know. You know what I'm saying?
That's rough.
You feel me? And so that honesty part is not there.
Yeah.
So for me, it's heavy on my list of just being an honest man.
One thing about honesty that I find incredible is, so you said you can do business with somebody that's honest. That's where I think people really get why honesty is so critical. So a relationship to work well, to be a high functioning business friendly relationship, I need a sort of deposit and withdrawal system. So no, you should never do it for the deposit and withdrawal, but there is a reality to be faced in human relationships. If all you do is give, and the person never reciprocates, humans are not wired for that. And so it won't work. The relationship will go your separate ways. But if when I make a deposit, I'm like, I'm gonna be able to make a withdrawal here at some point. In fact, Trav, you know where I think this comes from? This is fucking interesting. When I heard this laid out, I was like, oh my God. Think from an evolutionary standpoint. There's no refrigerator. Do you know how you store calories?
Talk to me.
So let's say that you take down a buffalo.
Okay.
You can't eat it. Even if you said, everybody back off. This is my buffalo. Get away from my buffalo. I will kill you and your whole family if you touch my buffalo. You can eat it as much as you can, literally until another bite and the lining of your stomach will tear, okay? You're stuffing your face. It will rot before you can finish eating it. So now you have this dilemma. Even if I want to be selfish, I can't eat the whole thing. But if I let other people eat it, I don't get anything out of that. But you do. Because by feeding them, you're now storing calories in them. They're eating, they're full, they've got fat. Well, what happens when you don't kill the buffalo, but they do? Now they're like, my brother, please come to my table and eat. So I'm gonna say that again. You can store calories in another human being by feeding them when you have an abundance.
I like that.
They get to eat, and now they will do the same for you.
I like that.
That's honesty. It builds trust. That word, if I feed you, you're gonna feed me next time. And so this is where you get into reciprocal altruism, where yes, you're doing something nice, but it just comes back to you. And people I think they feel icky when they say, part of why I do this is to make sure that I'm taken care of. But that's awesome. That's how people cooperate as a group. That it's give and take always. So honesty, I think the reason so many people gravitate towards it is when I can trust you, one, evolution has made that feel good. So it just feels amazing. I tell people in the company all the time, it really hurts to tell somebody something hard. I don't like saying it, and I know you don't like hearing it. But if I tell you the hard things, you know you can trust me. Because you know exactly my mental map of who you are. And so now there's no like unease about what's what. And so I know if you're quiet, it means you have nothing to say. Versus, to your point, murder's not off the table. It's like, well, is this going somewhere bad? So you can do business with somebody when I know if I make a deposit today that I'll be able to get a withdrawal later at some point. Huge. Okay, so honesty, integrity was the other one. One, how do you define integrity?
This is the one thing I tell my daughter, doing the right thing when nobody's looking. If I'm willing to do the right thing, if I can do it right, Tom is my guy. So I'll give you an example. So a couple friends of mine had a huge event that they put on, and somebody hit me up and was like, yo, I would like to be a part of that event. Big person. And I was, they thought it was my event. And I was like, yo, that's not my event. I'll put you in contact with who that event is for. That's integrity. Because I could have kept that to myself, try to do something in the middle, try to make some money off it, be the middleman. I didn't, no, look, this is my guys. Here's the information. Y'all do that. Don't put me in the email no more. Handle y'all business. Integrity. Integrity is me being able to do something without me even expecting something on the back end, but on the strength that I know Tom is a good guy. Hey, Tom, here's my people, man. Here's an alley-oop, yo. I don't need nothing from it. That's integrity. We talked about business earlier, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but we talked about the human capital part. The capital part that people need in building a successful business. The next thing next to building a successful business that's more important to me than money is building integrable relationships. Building relationships with other successful people or building relationships with people that's based off integrity can help your business get to another level, because some rooms you can't get in with money. Some rooms you can only get in based on who you know. There's some rooms I can only get in because Tom says, Trap is my guy. There's some rooms that I don't care how much money you got, that's not the value system here. The value system to get in this room is based on the people in here do good business. The people in here are integrable. this is the room you need to be in. Money can't get you here because everybody here got money. What do you do when money is no longer the option? You're gonna be based on what? Integrity and honesty, truthfulness. Those are the things you can be based on. And so even in business, integrity and honesty is important.
Massively. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, this again goes back to culture rides in the back of values. What do we think is good? What do we think is right? And when I look at you, so it's interesting for people that haven't seen your show.
Come on, man.
Trappin' Tuesdays.
Come on, man.
Watching it was really interesting because you're attacking it from the point of value. So you'll talk about your family, you talk about your daughter. I heard you tell the story about your daughter and there was friction at school and how you helped her through it. And you're like, I know I haven't talked about stocks yet. And I was like, you haven't, but this is why your show is doing well, because getting the value system right, understanding how to think, knowing how to sort of move becomes really important. And so that idea of that, culture is malleable, that you can create a new culture. Being a part of your group will have its own culture, right? Same with impact theory. It's like there's a culture to being an employee, there's a culture to being in the impact theory university. And when you think about, you've got your frame of reference is being built around all of these things. It's the funhouse mirror that we all see life through. There's a guy named Donald Hoffman who says, everything that you experience is real life. The only thing I can tell you is it isn't true at all. And so we were sitting at this very table when he explained to me, Tom, when you see the surface of this table, what's true about the surface of this table is its mass, the number of photons that are reflecting off of it, all that. If you try to live life by going, oh, that has a mass of this, and there's this many photons bouncing off in this part of the light spectrum, he's like, you can't get anywhere. Way better to go, this is a table, and it's sort of gray. And he's like, that's what humans have evolved to do. But that actually isn't the underlying reality. Okay, so your brain is creating a wild simplification of the truth. And this is my favorite example that he uses. And I am gonna answer the question about reading.
Right.
But the example that he uses is let's say that you're in a VR game of Grand Theft Auto. You think, oh, when I turn the steering wheel in the game, the car goes left if I turn left, the car goes right if I turn right. He said, what's really happening is electrical volts are toggling back and forth 1 trillion times a second or whatever inside of your PlayStation. But if you had to go toggle the individual voltages to get the image, the pixels on the screen to move in a certain way that it looks like a car going left, he was like, you'll never be able to play. So you need the just ridiculous level of simplification in order to play the game. That's life. That's your frame of reference. But it is so abstracted from the reality that, so I'll put it into my terms. I grew up lower middle class in almost rural Tacoma. So I didn't have cows, but my neighbors did.
Yeah.
To give you an idea. And I was taught to be a good employee, to keep my head down, do as little work as possible, and avoid punishment at all costs. That it's all about make as much money as fast as you can, trading time for money. Like they wouldn't have even known to say, don't trade, that you are trading time for money. That's just the only way they knew how to make money. So that was my frame of reference, part of it. The other part was, I feel good when people tell me that I'm smart, but I don't realize that. So this is the distortion that my brain is creating over time. And I don't realize that these are things that I've chosen to believe, that they aren't accurate representation of the way that the world really works. And that I can get so good that people can't ignore me. That even if I am uneducated today, that doesn't mean I have to be uneducated tomorrow. That even if I'm frustrated that I'm not as intelligent as I would like to be, which I'm not, by the way, but I can get 100 times better at anything, which anybody can. So my frame of reference began to shift from I'm stuck in this brain and body that I'm not very impressed with to actually, you can grow and get better. That change in frame of reference took me from scrounging in my couch cushions to find enough change to put gas in my car to building and selling a $1 billion business.
Come on, man.
So ideas, frame of reference. So I now see the world through a different funhouse mirror. It still isn't objective reality, but it's really useful. Okay, so you've got this frame of reference, critically important to understand. All right, so because I know frame of reference is so important, I'm constantly trying to get new information to alter my frame of reference. However useful my frame of reference has become, I have not reached an end state, right? So you can constantly rewarp that glass to show you the world in a way that's more effective. That's the easiest way to think about it. So effective as defined, I have a goal. Is my behavior, my beliefs, and my values moving me towards that goal? Yes or no? If yes, you are operating in a way that is more true or accurate, right? You can predict the outcome of your behaviors. That to me is truth. We could really derail on that. I won't for now. All right. So I'm trying to shape my frame of reference so that the way that I think and act moves me more efficiently towards my goals. You get what you celebrate. I think about this a lot as a CEO.
That's good.
Dude, you get what you celebrate.
That's good.
And so if you celebrate being a badass, this is the same with inner city, same with being in prison. It's like you get all these different cultures and you're gonna get what you celebrate. Oh God, I'm gonna keep derailing. Have you read Up From Slavery?
No, I have not.
Booker T. Washington.
I have not.
Controversial figure.
I like it.
I can't figure out why, but that book, he was born a slave. And he was like, there's a way out of this. I can get so good people can't stop me. Becomes the punchline. But he starts a college. Trap, he was born a slave. He starts a college that's still running today.
Let that sit in right quick. Right.
When I think about, will Impact Theory University outlive me by, not as of yet. Insane. How does he do it? Culture. Do you know that he made the students in his university, had to learn, drumroll please, brick making. They had to learn how to make bricks, Trap. Why? So that they could build the buildings so that they would have respect for the knowledge. Because he was like, if they just roll up and this is all easy, and he was like, people would show up outraged. I was a slave. I'm sending my kids to your university and you're making them build bricks. Like what the? And he was like, I'm telling you right now, if people build this stuff themselves, the level of respect that they will have for the hall, the way they will hold each other accountable. And I was like, forget what the culture was, because it's different now and of course it's going to change. Structure. Somebody said that at the beginning of this episode. Structure. There are things that we do here and there are things that we don't do here. He instilled a value system that allowed them to say, because values tell you who's in and who's out. Oh, you made the bricks. And by the way, they became known in like that region of the South for making the highest quality bricks. So now they can sell bricks to fund the school. Dude, it was so insane. I'm reading the book and I'm like, this is fucking genius. Values. Creates a culture. You reinforce the culture by what you celebrate and what you tolerate. That culture becomes so profound that you can defeat nations. So going back to the slave rebellion in Haiti, I need to memorize this guy's name. Forgive me, I'm in the middle of reading this book. I'm literally just encountering these ideas.
I know it, but I don't want to pronounce it wrong and I don't want to be disrespectful.
No, please.
No. I'm just, even as people, I don't want to say it wrong. I remember because I went to DC, so I don't want to say it wrong.
Say it as wrong as possible. I can't even remember. It's kind of French sounding.
Yeah, it's a French name. I don't want to say it wrong. I'm not gonna say it wrong.
All right, fair enough.
Let me say this though.
Please.
You were talking about, watch this, the bricks, the people who build the bricks for the college. They'd appreciate it more. The exact same thing goes with building wealth. The person who builds the wealth in the beginning, so I'll use myself as an example. I become the pioneer. I become the trailblazer. I become the person who says that my family will eat for a lifetime based on the decisions that I make today, based on the information that I've gained and applied. Because I'm the one in the beginning stage building it, I will respect the wealth more. if I don't install those values in my daughter, if I don't install in her the respect for money, if I don't install it in her why investing is important, then what happens is she inherits a lot of money, but don't know what to do with it. And so now she may live well, but the generations behind her don't benefit from it because they never had an attachment to the money. They never had an attachment to the wealth. They just got the wealth. They obtained it. And so when I think about Cornelius Vanderbilt, we never talk about him in the pioneers of America, the richest men in the world. We never talk about him. Why? Because after he died, his son did enjoy the money, but no generation after that did because they went broke.
T-shirt to T-shirt in 3 generations.
They went broke. But we still talk about J.P. Morgan. We still talk about the Rockefeller. We still talk about the Rothschild. We still talk about Sam Walton, who has 5 of his grandchildren and kids on the Fortune 500 list. Always. Why? Because there was a culture there. And the culture was about building that Walmart brand. But then what we don't realize about passing wealth down is this is not just about passing money down. It's about passing down information. It's about passing down bylaws. It's about passing down structure. It's about, I just lost my great aunt. And I talked about her on my last show. I just lost, and she was the matriarch to my family, right? She was the matriarch. She held it together. And 11 months before that, we lost her sister, right? So they were the last 2. And I honored them. They did so much for me on my journey. And now that both of them have now gone, our family now has to be restructured. We have to now install new traditions. Not saying the old ones weren't well, but for instance, we will all go to her house for Thanksgiving, right? We were all, everything, she put things in place. So now that whole entire generation is gone. So the generation that's available now is my mother's generation. So it's my mother, her brothers, and then I'm the next generation, and then my kids, so on and so forth. So now we have to now put new values in place. We have to put new traditions in place. We have to put a new structure in place. And because I now have the financial literacy now, I'm talking to my uncle the other day, he like, Trap, like, yep, I'm the leader, but you're up next. And that meant a lot to me. And in a minute, I got scared because I thought about, yep, I teach people about financial literacy all the time. I talk about being a CEO of my family. I talk about turning my family's last name into an asset. But now because I always say this, once you get the information, you are now responsible. Like, it's okay, it's not okay, but I'm saying this, using this figuratively. It's okay that, literally, it's okay, when you blowing money because you don't know no better, right? But once you become cognizant and once you have the information, now you are held accountable. And so for me, now, more than ever, I am held accountable, one, because I went from homeless to being where I am now, right? Nobody else in my family went through that. I went from not just once, but twice, to building a business, to learning how to invest, to giving my daughter a custodial account, she'll be a millionaire before she's 15, right?
Damn.
Yeah, these things are so important to me. So now we set new rules. We set new rules of engagement. What are those rules of engagement? Okay, so now everybody, my little cousin just had a little boy. I said, bro, we got to open up a custodial account now. Like now. He's a couple weeks old. We got to open a custodial account up now. Well, why do I got to do that? Because if we start investing now, we can now increase him being a millionaire, but also we can start impregnating him with certain things, right? We can start talking about money once he gets 2 years old. Like my daughter, she's 6. Her ABCs for me come in the form of A is for asset, B is for bank, C is for credit, F
that
is for fiduciary,
genius.
right? This how the ABCs come to her.
Does she know the word fiduciary?
She know what it means.
Dude, that's incredible.
Right? So that's how the ABCs are now talk to her. E is for equity. Like this how we, now you got to give me okay, so what does it mean now? Not just a norm, but what does it mean now? Right? And so now when we go to Disney World, you know you own stock in this, right? When I bought for her birthday, she made 6. I said, what do you want, babe? She's like, I want to buy some Roblox stock, right? So normally for me, it's breaking down the business, going through my whole process. But for her, it was like, let her get the exposure to it. So, yep, let's buy the Roblox stocks. How many shares you want? She said, I want 16. And then when I pulled it up on my phone, she said, no, I want 100. Cool. We bought 100 shares for her birthday. It don't matter that the stock is down right now because it was her identifying that instead of getting me this is what I want. So now for me, it's that my great aunt is gone. This now has to be, she's transitioned. This now has to be the value system that we stand on. So everybody that has a kid, as soon as you have a kid, we open up a custodial account. But then we're going to double down with it and say, when that person has a kid and open a custodial account, everybody now is responsible for putting the first $50 to it, right? So now we implementing new rules. We implementing things now that every family member now has to take on, right? And now everybody embraces it. And so changing that dynamic of my family, implementing new rules, becoming the leader. If we look at a lot of people's family, no one has a real leadership in their family. But when we look at successful families, there's leadership there. I don't care how much we don't like the Kardashians or whatever, how you feel about them. That mother leads that tribe, right? And then if we look at it, okay, she leads that. We look at the Waltons, somebody leads that tribe, right? We look at every rich family, and then after the leader is gone, someone is groomed to step up and take place. So the family structure doesn't fall. The Vanderbilts didn't have that. And so now their family is never talked about, right? So for me, it's how do, just with my family, how do I now implement those rules because I am now the leader? And the most scariest thing anyone can do ever coming from lower class, middle class poverty is the most important financial decision you'll ever make is how much of your money that you make from your paycheck you're going to get to work for you. It's the most important decision you ever make financially. Because if you never know how much money from your paycheck that you worked hard for that is going to work for you, then you're always going to have to work for every paycheck. And if you got to always work for every piece of income that you have physically put in that labor, you have a cap on what you can make. That's just the truth of the matter. And so, just changing that, when you just gave that Booker T. Washington scenario, that's what just jumped in my mind of the family members don't appreciate the wealth if they didn't contribute to building it. So now how do we set a culture that makes everyone contribute to building the wealth of the family? For me, I don't want to focus on closing the wealth gap. That's not my focus.
When you say you're knocked to your knees, you're embarrassed, you failed, you lost money, it's just hard, it's boring, you'd rather be out with your friends, your kid is sick, whatever, all those things that are gonna come for you, when you say, why am I doing this? You better have a physical feeling to the positive when you answer that question.